Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law that I don't like her food? My husband, 23, and I, 21, both come from different cultures. For example, I am actually an immigrant and only moved to America when I was just 12 years old. There's a lot of things my husband and his family does differently than mine, things that I'm not quite accustomed to. One being how they prepare and season their food. To me, it's just super bland, and the stuff they chose of food combinations just doesn't seem to go together. For example, my mother-in-law puts mayo on literally everything. I've even seen her make a tortilla pizza as mayo as her base, which she offered to me. Each time she offers me food, I always make up some kind of excuse to avoid eating it and try to be as polite as possible about it. But unfortunately for me, after I invited her to dinner, she felt compelled to do the same for me even when I told her it's not necessary. The next day, after the dinner we had together, she started making plans with my husband. When my husband brought it up to me, I told him I really didn't want to go, to which he replied, "My mom's food is not that bad. Could you please just deal with it for one day?" Now, in most cases, I would have just sucked it up in order to maintain a good relationship with my mother-in-law. But I'm pregnant in my first trimester, and I'm feeling extra nauseous. I honestly don't think I'd be able to keep the food down in the condition I'm in. My husband grew up eating her food, which is maybe why he doesn't think it's that bad. I mean, even my family thinks so when my mom invited her over for a family get-together. She brought some pasta, which sauce tasted like a whole package of ketchup was dumped into it. I ended up venting to my sisters and mom about the issue, and they all gave me the advice to just be honest. My mom even said that if I don't be honest now, it's something I'll have to deal with for the rest of my life. So I decided to call her and express to her that I'm not accustomed to eating the type of food she is used to making. And since I'm pregnant, it'll be really hard for me to swallow because of my nausea. I even offered to teach her the recipes from my homeland that she seemed to really enjoy. It didn't go well. She was really offended and told me that she'll never cook for my ungrateful self again, and told my husband. My husband is really disappointed in me because he felt like I should have just pretended to keep the peace and is now upset that my mother-in-law doesn't even want to invite me over again. I feel super bad now and honestly want to know if I'm the a-hole in this situation or if I was being too mean or disrespectful. Am I in the wrong? Update. I've invited my mother-in-law out to a tea cafe and spoke to her in person. I was able to explain myself better and chose not to back down on me not liking the type of food she cooks. I'm sorry, but this is my life, and I'm choosing not to live the rest of my future being pressured into eating foods I do not like, and I'm choosing to live my relationship based on honesty. I had an honest discussion with my mother-in-law and explained to her that I love her as a person and appreciate the time and effort she put into making my husband and I food, but I honestly do not like the type of food she chooses to make. I explained to her that it doesn't make her any less of a person or a bad cook, it's just my personal preferences. She took it extremely well this time and apologized for insulting me and told me that she's never been the best cook and would love to take me up on my offer to learn some meals from my homeland. I ended up suggesting that we took cooking classes together, and she loved the idea. I think the little bump in the road gave us a stronger bond, and I'm glad we were able to patch things up. I personally don't think the advice I was getting from the majority of this sub was good advice, and would recommend to anyone in my situation to be honest and kind. I even made it known to my mother-in-law that I myself would appreciate the same kind of honesty coming from me, and if she ever disliked food I made, or even a gift I gave, to please let me know so I can make or get something she'd enjoy. She even made jokes about previous gifts I got her. Lol. Top comments. I mean, you called her up to tell her that her food sucks. You wouldn't be offended if she did the same thing to you? If she was like, "The food you make is really unfamiliar and I honestly can't stomach it at all," wouldn't you be offended too? I would be. Soft, you're the a-hole. No, you don't need to eat her food. You don't have to like her food. But calling her up to tell her how you literally cannot imagine trying to choke down her food is pretty rude. I'd give that more than a soft you're the a-hole. OP doesn't have to like her food, and it would have been completely fine to say her nausea is really bad during her pregnancy, she's having trouble eating much of anything, but would be happy to come over for dinner when her morning sickness phase is finished. As an example, I learned to really embrace drinking lemonade and eating crackers because there were points where I couldn't eat/keep down anything else. You're not wrong, but I know certain textures and flavors can be off-putting for some people. The communication is the problem here, not the lack of eating certain food. Yeah, but what happens after she's no longer pregnant? I would not want to eat mayo pizza/ketchup pasta, barf, even if I could help it. Yes, I'm not a picky eater, but those meals sound truly awful. I think I would gag eating a mayo pizza and ketchup pasta. I read the update and I think it's great. It seems like there's a bit of a divide in the comment section for this post. Others may disagree with me here, but I do not think that OP is in the wrong. Yes, OP could have possibly gone about telling their mother-in-law in a better way, and I'm glad they did in the update. But no one should be made to do things that they're uncomfortable with to keep the peace. The best option in a situation like this is to be honest and respectful. I like how in the end, OP told their mother-in-law that she can feel free to be honest about anything she dislikes from OP. This open communication will likely improve their relationship in the long run. Am I the a-hole for not telling my mother-in-law her son had passed? I sound completely awful here, and I think I might be. Now that pretty much everyone in my family thinks I'm horrendous, I wanted an outside opinion. My husband passed away recently after a very sudden and difficult struggle with cirrhosis. It was easily the worst thing to happen in my life. The damage was invisible for years. We never saw it coming. He got so sick so fast. After they diagnosed him, he lived a little over a year. We called all our family, including his mother, who otherwise we don't have much contact with. I've always hated that woman. She has always been cruel to him, put him down every chance she could. When we would call saying her son was terminally ill, she first denied it, insisted we were lying. Then she went on about how we should have seen this coming, that this is just what happens when you're a drunk. Of course, this shut down the call pretty fast. She only called once after that, and we didn't pick up. A little over a year later, I had to bring him to the hospital, and in 2 days, he was gone. At that point, he was already just so confused and hardly conscious. I told my parents and his brothers, and we were the last people to see him. I wasn't doing very well at the time either. Everything just happened so fast. I wasn't ready to make any of those decisions. And between the doctors and the bills and just seeing him so sick, I didn't even think about his mother. In the days after, I just didn't want to deal with her. I know that's horrible, but I was just so tired. She called me a few weeks later. I'm not sure how she heard. She was hysterical, which I know is understandable. She said I robbed her of saying goodbye to her son, and robbed him of a proper service. I should have just hung up, but I was so hurt and so angry. I informed her a very nice service was held, which every important person in his life was there. I said she must be mistaken and blocked her number. She's gone ballistic, called my brother-in-laws in tears about how I've ruined her life, gone on Facebook about how devastated she is and publicly begging me to talk to her, how she just wants his things and to know what happened. Even my parents said it wasn't my place to make that choice for my husband, and I should try to talk to her. I know I probably should. I know he was hers before he was mine. But she made him miserable, and if he had been able to choose, I know he wouldn't have wanted her there. I don't think she deserved to see him, and I don't think she deserves to have any of the things that were his. But now that I write it all out, it really sounds horrible. Maybe I'm out of line to make that call. The only people who haven't said I was being cruel are my husband's 2 brothers, who know how she can be. But other than them, she was the only family he had. Maybe it isn't my right to interfere with that. Maybe beyond a-hole. Am I an absolutely awful person? Top comments. Why didn't his brothers tell their mom about the service? Not the a-hole. That's what I was wondering. If other members of the family were involved, why did they omit the info? Why was it entirely on her to inform his mother and not the brothers? Brothers could have told mother-in-law, but mother-in-law is putting it all on OP. Can't blame them for going no contact, not the a-hole. Did mother-in-law really think that someone was going to reach out after what she said when she was informed that he was terminal? She had her chance to be kind, but she chose to be herself, not the a-hole. I don't think OP's the a-hole here. This sounds like a very emotional and difficult situation for OP with the passing of their partner, and I wouldn't be surprised if contacting the mother slipped their mind. It also seems that the OP's mother-in-law has had a history of expressing toxic behavior towards both OP and OP's late partner. To be honest, if I were in this situation, I would not want someone that treated me poorly when I was alive to attend my funeral. Commenters also brought up the point that none of the late partner's other family members ever contacted the mother-in-law about their passing or the funeral. Maybe they were aware that he would not have wanted his mother to attend. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my mother-in-law attend my wedding after what she said about my daughter? I, male 33, am marrying the love of my life, female 25. We have a 10-year-old daughter. She was 5 when I met my fiancé. The bio dad is not in the picture. We did not start dating until my fiancé finished college 3 years ago. She worked her butt off as a single mom to get her high school diploma and then her teaching degree after her parents kicked her out when she got pregnant. She did eventually reconcile, and they helped her with the child care while she finished school. We met when she was a student teacher at the school where I work. For the last 2 years, her daughter has been my daughter. I'm adopting her as part of our wedding because I am her dad. Both my fiancé and myself are Caucasian. My daughter is mixed race. When we were discussing both our parents, I overheard my mother saying she can't wait to have a real grandchild. I immediately asked what she meant by that. She said that she just meant it's obvious that my daughter isn't biologically mine. She says that she wants a child that is obviously her grandchild to show off. I would never in a million years have guessed those words would come out of my mother. I told her she wasn't welcome at my wedding and not to worry about being seen with my daughter because she would never be seeing any of my kids. She has been blowing up my social media, claiming that it's my fault for not understanding how she feels. It takes everything I have not to block her because her and my dad share accounts. I want to just call her out as a racist jerk. My family thinks I should give her another chance. I don't want her and her attitude near my family. My fiancé says it's my call, but I know she is hurt by what my mother said. Am I the a-hole? Edit. It's my mom. I screwed up the title. Edit. After reading so many responses, I re-examined the conversation with my mom. I still do not know 100% if it is racism, but it still sounds like she thinks my daughter is less than. I won't have that. I'm seeing my mom today. We will talk. Top comments. Not the a-hole, but you almost gave me a heart attack with, we have a 10-year-old daughter. I thought you got a 15-year-old girl pregnant when you were 23. Well, yup, I could have written just better. Your paraphrasing may have needed some work, but your heart is clearly working just fine. Nowhere do you refer to her as your stepdaughter, or otherwise give any impression that you see her as anything other than your daughter, regardless of how or when she and her mother came into your life. Not the a-hole. Chris Hansen leaves the chat. The first portion of the story was questionable until I read that OP was the adoptive father of the 10-year-old. I don't think OP is an a-hole for protecting their daughter from their mom, who, at best, doesn't see the granddaughter as an actual member of the family, and at worst, holds prejudice and potentially racist feelings toward the little girl. If OP allowed his mother to continue this pattern of behavior with his daughter and future children OP and their partner may have, it's possible that OP's mom may ostracize the daughter from the family and treat her biological grandchildren better. I think that OP is making the best decision for their family by distancing themselves from their mother for the time being. Am I the a-hole for thinking my mother-in-law's obsession with my son is absurd? I have a 4-year-old, and I am due with baby number 2 mid-year. My husband, 27, and I, 25, have been together since we were teens. Mother-in-law, 47, was jealous from the get-go of our relationship. I've read up a bit on this. It's to do with her not having their emotional needs met by a partner, so they subconsciously use their son to meet those needs. Then, when I fell pregnant with my now 4-year-old, she kept saying, "my baby," and sometimes she would slip and start referring to hubby as our child's brother. This continued my whole pregnancy, and she would boast about it to anyone and everyone. Then, when he was born, it all amplified. She wanted to take him to spend alone time with him from the time he was a couple weeks old, and would be offended when we said no. She would always say that Grandma loves him more than his parents do. She would kick up a giant stink whenever she wasn't able to take him out alone. She never wanted to spend time with him around us. There were so many times where we tried to set boundaries, but she would always do it her way and guilt trip us. When we would do things together, she would physically push the pram out of my hands, and she would push the pram everywhere anytime we were together. "I'll push my baby." And I was never allowed. She would never correct people if they assumed she was his mother. And as his parents, we thought that was too weird. He is always her grandson, but never ever is he our son. Anytime we do anything, it is always about her. It's like she's now using my son to meet her emotional needs, which, even though it's subconscious, to me it's sick. I have tried to place more boundaries, but always get met with guilt trips. When we go places together, where my son will experience what I call first, all of those things are taken over by her. Even just small details like going to buy a drink, she needs to take him instead of us. She either takes him and does them without us, or I'll say, "Hey, maybe we could do this with his parents too," and she'll be unhappy and make sure that he holds her hand and he's sitting next to her and not us. She always makes sure if he comes over to me that she gets his attention back onto her. She constantly tells him she loves him the most. He's her favorite. He's her favorite person. And anytime we do anything together, to make her the center of his attention. Now that I'm having another baby, also a boy, I've been worried it'll be the same thing all over again. But it's not. I caught her telling my son, "Don't worry, you'll be Grandma's favorite always. You are Grandma's boy. You won't have to share. I'll always be your favorite person." And that is just horrible. She is saying things like, "You and Grandma can do things together, and Mom and Dad can have the new baby." Am I the a-hole for thinking this is just absurd behavior? Edit. We have had many talks. Me alone with her, him alone with her, us together with her. It always ends with her crying and guilt tripping us. Edit 2. I understand it now after reading comments. Sometimes it's hard to look in from the outside when you are stuck on the inside. For a while there, I thought taking her away might even be a bad decision because of how much he adores her. In my mind, I was taking away someone he cherished. After reading the comments, I can now see what it is from the outside looking in. Just needed that boost to get there and get out of the box. The guilt I was feeling was mainly because of how he feels towards her, which now I get. How could a 4-year-old not cherish someone who gives into his every whim? I get that now that's actually manipulation, but when you stand here and watch them, and you watch how his eyes light up when she's around, and how excited he is, it does take a little bit of a shove to look at him from a different angle and have that realization moment. Top comments. Your mother-in-law sounds dangerously mentally sick. No is a complete sentence. You need to stick to your no. It is also super unhealthy for a child to hear these things. I'm surprised you have not had behavioral problems from your son. You need to nip this now. Stop allowing her to guilt you. Think of your son's well-being every time. Please do not allow her to have alone time with him and correct her when she makes statements that she is making. It's time to confront her without your son around, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I agree with this, especially the "grandma loves you more" statements. She needs therapy and can be a danger to your child. People like this are often kidnappers. Family members are the most likely to do that statistically. Agreed. I wouldn't let her near my family without months/years of successful therapy and her proving she's no longer delusional. She needs to realize how toxic her relationship with her grandson is, and it's not going to do him any good when he grows older. He's likely to cause issues at home and with his siblings when he grows up because she has him on a pedestal and is creating distance between him and those who are supposed to be closest to him. I'm very worried for the child and future child in this situation. The fact that OP is setting very clear boundaries with their mother-in-law and she is still refusing to accept them is a red flag. It is also very concerning that the mother-in-law refers to the child as her own, makes statements like, "I love you more than anyone," and seems to isolate the 4-year-old away from both of his parents. This seems like a form of parental alienation and enmeshment. The mother-in-law is using her 4-year-old grandson to have her emotional needs met, and that's too much pressure to put on anyone, let alone a child. I would no longer allow the mother-in-law to look after the 4-year-old alone, and may even consider cutting that relationship off completely, or at least greatly diminishing her ability to visit with the child. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law she gave up her family and it's her fault she's alone? My husband and I have been married for 6 years. At least 5 of those have been almost no contact with his mother. I don't know the whole story, but his dad passed away when he was young and his mom remarried a man who was horribly abusive to him until he moved out. He tried to tell his mother for years, but she just wouldn't believe it. It got to the point that, for his own well-being, he just couldn't be around her anymore. This week, after years of silence, she shows up at our doorstep. She said she tried to call, but we have her blocked, so obviously it didn't go through. She was in tears and started crying about how her husband had trashed her house and left her, and she realized her son was telling the truth, how she didn't have anyone, all that stuff. She begged to talk to my husband. I said that she had some freaking balls coming to our house to cry after throwing her son to the side for a disgusting predator until that stopped working for her. I said she made her bed. Now's the time to lay in it, and it wasn't going to be in my freaking house. She was almost hysterical when she left. Her coming to the door put my husband in a panic attack. He's been too depressed to get out of bed since. I really don't care for that woman. When I replay it in my head, I feel absolutely terrible. Berating someone in tears never feels good, and now I think I might have just made things worse. Should I have done something different? Was this a jerk move? Top comments. Not the a-hole. She needed to be told. Didn't care when it was happening to her son, but oh, it's the end of the world when it happened to her. Good for you. Hold your head up high and keep looking after your husband. You're not the a-hole. You're your husband's superhero. I picture OP in a long robe and a pointy hat yelling, "You shall not pass," to her mother-in-law. There is a special place for people who choose their romantic partners over their own children. Dear old mom made her choice, and sadly, OP's husband has to bear the brunt of the consequences. OP should not have even a shred of guilt for telling the mom off, not the a-hole. Edit. Typo. Not the a-hole. Agreed. Choosing a partner, especially a horrid one, over a child is madness to me. She needed to be told. Good on OP for prioritizing their partner's mental health. The fact that OP's partner was having a panic attack at the thought of having to face their mother says a lot about the mother-in-law as a person. I can only imagine the trauma that OP's partner faced at the hands of his mother's husband. The fact that the mother-in-law is only concerned after it happens to her, and that the mother-in-law is only contacting them after years of radio silence in order to receive the emotional support that she denied her son, is truly saddening. OP is in no way the a-hole. It should not feel an ounce of guilt for setting boundaries or protecting their partner. Thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you agree with the verdict. Also, consider checking out my other channel, *_Vingart, where I post my artwork, and my Etsy, StarVingartCompany, where I sell my art prints and stickers. Bye!